Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with Jason Rhee. We'll give it a hot second for everybody to pop in. If you are watching, please pull out your phone and follow us on Instagram. We're at Rock Paper Coin, and then Jason is Jason Roars. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Money Talks chat with Jason. Okay, I see lots of people. Yay for joining. Okay, well, we're here. Jason, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm amazing. It's so good to see you.
We're here to chat about money.
We're here to laugh a lot as well. I promise you, if you're here, you are
Maybe a
going to
little
laugh
cry
a
for
lot.
me. I'm gonna cry a little.
We'll cry, we'll laugh. It's all good. Jason, can you share with everybody just your background, all of your information, everything about you?
I have been in the hospitality industry for I wouldn't say now 18 years. I am tired. um, I'm a traditional wedding planner, event designer, event producer, whatever you want to call me. But I have been lucky enough to work in this industry and find different creative outlets for my crazy artistry mind, and have seen the industry go through so many different layers of community over competition to just straight competition to now somewhere in the middle where we're all kind of finding our right community and making sure we align with the best people that we love and support. So yeah, so that's what I do. I do event design and produce creative experiences.
I love it. What's funny to hear you say that, because those of us that have been in the industry for a very long time were there when there was no community. It was
Yeah.
like you against the world, nobody in the
Just a
same
bunch of
category.
cards,
I,
just no Google yet.
totally.
There was the yellow
There,
pages. There was
nope.
the penny saver. That was
There
basically
was
the things that we had.
dial up internet.
A lot of Michaels, a lot of
So it's been an amazing shift in the industry. And I so appreciate you coming on and being candid and telling us all about how you run your business and different trials and tribulations. We were kind of chatting before, some funny things that have happened over the years. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. If I could save anyone from making a mistake that I have made, I'm all ready to share.
I love it. Okay, well, let's just dive right in. So, talk to me or talk to us about what finding your worth means as a business owner.
I mean, I think, I was really thinking about this question, and I really think it is an ongoing, ever evolving, every year you're looking for your worth. And I think I wish that, and maybe at the end of my life, I'm going to say, oh, this was the defining moment that I finally figured it out. But I feel like every year there's a new experience and a new fun client that'll teach you how to, really advocate for yourself and ask for your value. So I think at this point, what I've honored is just truly honoring yourself and making sure that you understand that we're not a traditional business. It does take a lot of our bodies to physically be there. And so in order for us to understand that we ourselves, the time that we put in, the time that we're taking away from our own families and our own friends and our own lives, that's part of our value and that's part of our magic. And so if people want to be a part of that magic, what does that mean? And that's kind of, I think, what for me has been the intention of knowing my value.
I love that. So, what do you say to planners or different people in the industry that might be planners or might be doing the same thing as you, or maybe not, that aren't charging enough, and they're totally coming in under market, and it's hurting you as a planner and
Yeah.
others as well? What do you say to them?
Well, okay, first and foremost, let's stop shaming ourselves about it, because I know that all of us have done a freebie. All of us have done that friend of a friend. All of us have done something for some influencer somewhere. So I think first and foremost, we're all in the same boat. We all have done it before. Some of us are still doing it. And I think ultimately it's figuring out when I think the threshold, when you've hit that, it's enough. This is enough. I'm done. I'm done. And again, I know that, different sectors of the industry have different types of models of business. So I do want to be very clear that I think setting your value, knowing your value, you should be paying attention to the industry and the community and what people are charging, but also just understand that like you yourself have your own value and you yourself know your own magic. And so it's about discovering that magic, figuring out what brings you joy and figuring out how you can really be compensated the most for that joy, I think is the secret. But I do want to kind of preface, like, let's stop beating ourselves up about it, because I know that all of us have been like, oh, dang it, like I should have charged more, or oh, they were so much worse than we expected. Or sometimes we're like, oh my God, they were a lot better than we expected. And I can really get down with this fee. I can really enjoy this number. So I think it's just that ever evolving cycle that we typically, all of us do, which is our inner guilt and all the things that we kind of shame ourselves about. But I think ultimately it's just about making sure that you're always asking yourself, do you feel like what you're doing is worth it? And are you making the kind of life you want to make? And I think that's a great place to start. And then really finding community and finding other people that you work with that are like-minded, that are either doing the style of business that you're doing, or even the same kind of artistry that you're doing, and then figuring out from there, like, oh my gosh, that person's charging percentage, and I feel like I can charge a percentage. And that's kind of always been the key for me too, is anytime that I talk to friends, you know, some newer, some in the game, some senior class, I think we always kind of just talk about numbers to make sure that we're like, hey, what do you think about this? Is this enough? And I think if we do that a little bit more, we can all kind of get a little bit better with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of people are nervous to share numbers with quote unquote competitors, but at the end of the day, it really just strengthens the community as a whole. So I totally
100%.
agree with you.
100%.
Okay, so you mentioned percentage. Let's talk about percentage versus flat rate.
I'm a percentager all the way. I think that, and I'll share my percentage. I charge 25% for weddings and I charge 35% for corporate. And then depending on what kind of events that we're doing, or if we're doing, you know, because again, I have different sectors of revenue in my business. You know, I think it's just really being kind of clear about what it is that you want to offer and what you're doing. And again, I've made a very big decision earlier on that I did not want to be an agency. I didn't want to be a conglomerate. I didn't want to have, you know, 100 people under me, that I have such a kind of far distance from the client experience that I don't really know what's going on until on site, which not knocking anyone. The fact that people can make money in the bed, like, that's great. This unfortunately is not the business that I chose to do that. So I think it's just a bit about figuring that part out. But yeah, I'm a percentage planner. And I think setting a minimum budget to that planning percentage has always been kind of key for us. I know that I hear a lot about different markets and there being a lot of aversions to doing it, but I'm telling you, it'll change the way that you process how you do your business. Because again, the more money they spend, the more work you do. And it's just a very clear, simple production fee. It's a planning fee, and it's transparent. It's right there for you.
So at one point, did you do flat fee?
I ironically started with percentage. I was trained by Christine Baumgartner. She was an amazing planner for a very, very long time. She had something called The Perfect Day. And this is, again, like 40 years ago, she had started. You know, she'd been in the industry for a long time. And so I think I was like fresh out of college or in college, and I found this course. So they taught a percentage model, and at that time, its industry standard was 15%. Now, did I charge that at the first time? Absolutely not. But I did charge for my first wedding. I charged a flat fee for my first wedding. I think I charged $3,000 for my first wedding, and that was in 2007, maybe. And you know, it was the first check. Now, to be again transparent, because I'm about being real here.
I love it.
There's been many times throughout the many years of my business that I have kind of wavered on it. But as soon as I made that decision of saying, you know what, I got to stick to it, it's been the best decision for us, because again, it's super transparent for our clients. And the biggest like takeaway is that the fear is that clients are always going to tell you, well, if you're percentage based, then you're going to make it spend more. And I always tell them, if that was my business model, then I would not get any referral business, which means that you would hear about it and it would be on my reviews. And the first thing you'd see is like, he will gouge you out of, you know, your budget. But 9 times out of 10, it's us that are telling our clients, hey, you said you want to spend this money and now you're looking at crystal chandeliers, or you're looking at a, so I think that's kind of been an interesting part, but it's really been valuable for us to do percentage over
Yeah.
flat.
So you know this, but for those of you that are watching, I have a wedding planning company in Portland, which is how, Rock Paper Coin came to be. Myself and Elizabeth, my co-founder, are past planners. And from that company, we used to do flat fee for many, 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 many years. And I wanted to switch to percentage, but my team was like adamantly against it for the reason you said. They were worried that our clients wouldn't trust us if we're making more, if they spend more. So a couple of years ago, I got an inquiry, and it was clear to me that this client was going to spend a substantial amount of money. And so I just pitched it, and there was no questions asked. They booked on the spot. We did 18%. And that planner who took the wedding, that was adamantly against a percentage, made probably 5 times as much as she would have had we done a flat fee. And that's when the light bulb went off, and everybody kind of saw what a difference it was. And we weren't getting paid enough for how hard everybody was working. That was clear. And this was the best way to kind of combat that, in that couples don't know what they need. They don't know how much over budget they're going to go, or all the crazy things they're going to add. And planners spend time on every single one of those things. So it only makes sense that you would be paid on a percentage, to just, be paid your worth, and for all of the time and effort that you're putting into the wedding. So it has been a game changer. I agree. It's changed a lot, and everyone is just kind of happier. And we were worried that our inquiries and our bookings would go down, but they haven't. And if they did, that would be fine too, because we're making more and doing less.
And there are so many other industries that are in the similar lifelines as we are, similar to like real estate. I think there's a lot of like design client, like I think it's all kind of in the similar mindset again, where there's a percentage usually to what they do. So I find that the more we stick to it, I feel like as an industry, we can get more confident to say that that's how we do it. Now, I do understand that some people offer month out partial. Nobody should be offering day of. It should at least be called partial management, month out, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that for me, again, it was something that came early in, where all of our partial clients were still getting full service work, because at the end of the day, I couldn't separate and go like, oh, well, you only paid, $5,000. So I can't tell you all the secrets, but then I'm going to have to execute the wedding. It's going to be me. So now I'm going to withhold you all of the things that are going to set you up for success, to then say, oh, on the day I'm like, oh, I really should have set you up for success. So then we ultimately decided to get rid of those things, because we knew that for us, we enjoy the experience. And for us, we want to work with couples from the beginning to the end. And that's how we work. So, we do say no quite a bit, but I also think that for every no, there's a great yes that fits better with what we do. And I think that's what I want to be available for.
Yeah. Shelby has a question. She's saying, for percentage-based pricing, do you have a mutually agreed upon budget at signing and then add on that if the budget increases, or what does the communication look between planner and client?
Yeah, so I typically don't like to lift a finger until we have a contract signed. Now, I'll share a horror story about a few months ago where that did not happen. But so yes, I typically like to come up with a budget minimum. Now, a lot of times my clients come in at a time where they're really not sure what they want to do. So they like to build it, create it, dream of it together. So typically we start with a budget minimum, and regardless of whatever they want to do, that budget minimum is what our fee is contracted for. And then anything that exceeds that budget, yes, our percentage builds based on what they spend. And that's very transparent for them. And then once they kind of process that and understand that, it helps them understand it. And I thought for a long time that my clients would then want to spend less, or want to, I think earlier in the business, when the clients were not really my clients, but we still worked together, there were a lot of times that they were maybe trying to take things off the budget, but ultimately if I touch it, we have to work on it. The percentage has to live on it. The only place that I'm a little flexible with that is the dress, because I don't if I'm not the one that's like brokering it and seaming it and putting it together and like holding them, you know, if I'm not doing all the bippity boppity boo of a dress, then I think I'm good with them just letting me know what that number is so I can track it for them, but it doesn't come
Yep.
up with percentage.
Yeah. Dress, rings, honeymoon, the
Yeah.
things that you kind of have nothing to do
Yeah,
with.
absolutely.
But if they
They
want
want,
you to touch
I'm
it.
like, if they want me to come to the honeymoon,
So what other, have you gotten pushback in other ways or any
yeah, I mean,
questions that you get regularly?
absolutely. I think the hardest thing for me too, and I still struggle with this, is the feeling of FOMO, or the feeling of I have to help them. And a lot of us who have been doing weddings for, I don't know, longer than 2 years, we're in this for some painful reason, and it's not the money. So when we can all admit that here privately, I think there's a part of me that would always feel like, oh my God, I know I can help them. I can help them. So then let me just drain myself and my fees, and then I'll just fit
Right.
myself into their little tiny budget and make it happen. And I think 9 times out of 10, it always compromised me and my team and what we did and what we wanted to do. So now it's been a little bit easier for us to say like, hey, I really wish I can work with you, but for us to even put our minimum fee, it would compromise your wedding. So it wouldn't make sense. And so I think that's when we have to walk away from it. But I think it's just also taking like honest time and conversation to really look at the person's what they want, what their expectations are. I always ask the expectations at the beginning, even though a lot of times it's like a first date where they won't tell you that they're crazy. I always still like to ask, like, hey, what's your expectations with the planner? Like, what is it that you dream of? Like, what's the work system that you envision? And if it usually feels like, oh my God, I'm super organized and I love to plan and I love to do this stuff, and that's why I feel like I don't have to pay that much, then I'm always like, okay, here's the door. Or if there's the type of people that are like, we don't really know what we want to do, but we want to create an experience for our guests and we want it to feel, like us. That's usually when my ears perk up. And then again, we talk about the service and the experience. We want to make sure that we are giving value to that process too. So we charge a high percentage, but that's because we really truly get in bed with our couples. Like we truly hold their hand throughout the entire process. And some would say maybe too much. Some would say like you need some boundaries, but I realized too, it's harder for me to try to make boundaries for myself than actually charge what I should be charging to work with couples, and limit the amount of couples that I work with every year so that I'm not doing 40 a year and then killing myself every day.
So what's your magic number that you would like to do every year?
One. I think this year I've decided one, and it has to like emotionally move me.
Done.
I can do all the other financial things in my life, like other little like corporate and social gigs that I love to do and speaking opportunities and stuff. But I think I would say like 1 to 3, depending on, but again, to be fair, I've been doing this for so long and I really have done everything right and wrong you can imagine. So like, I've like, I feel like I've paid to do somebody's wedding at one point. So there's really no wrong answer for me. But yes, I feel like right now, maybe 1 to 3 would be the ideal. And it would have to be just a really special wedding. I just can't do, I'm not a cookie cutter wedding person. If you're looking for that like dripping white floral, crystals, like then there's so many other planners that are amazing that can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you wish someone would have told you about pricing early on in your career?
To stop comparing it because I'm not the same person as everyone else. So stop making it seem like I have to fit in a bubble or a box or make my packages look this way or not do this or do that. I just wish that someone told me that I can create my own business and I can work with the type of people that want to work with me. And that may not be everybody, and again, your bride may not be my bride, but your groom might not be my groom. And I think that's the part where I just wish I knew earlier on that I could be a little bit more brazen and brave and proud and lean into the design of what we love, that we're artists. That's what made me do this in the first place, is curating that experience,
Yeah. I think it's scary, especially being new to the industry or just starting when you're trying to get like every possible client that you can to turn someone away. It's scary because you want all the business. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, thank you. I do want
Um,
to answer just, I think there was a
yeah,
follow-up question. I think the percentage model could only really work with full service planning couples and corporate and social, because usually you're involved in from A to Z. I've never really seen anyone do it with partial. I mean, if you can get away doing it for partial, that's fabulous. But I also just, for me, partial gets very tricky because partial opens up so many more
yeah,
opportunities for liability. So that's like when you, that's like saying you want to work with two other people, two other planners, and then you guys have to just find alignment somewhere. And I think so for me, it just didn't work. But I think you have to stick to maybe flat for that. I've never seen a percentage,
yeah.
but maybe you're the
So,
first. Maybe Shelby, maybe you'll
so
be the first one in the industry to do it.
Amber Anderson from Refine for Wedding Planners, actually, she used to be a part of a wedding planning company and she kind of coaches planners, but she recommended, or maybe she did this, doing partial percentages. So there was like a fee and then the percentage is a lot lower for the things that you handle. It sounded a little complicated to me,
Yeah.
but it might be worth looking
There's,
into.
I know that there's also people that do a flat, and then they do like they do a flat design fee and
Yeah,
do a percentage that's less than
production.
and it's just, and again, for me, like, girl, if you want to get a calculator and do that all day, you can do that all day. You know, I know you can make an Excel spreadsheet for it. I just think it's so much more turnkey for yourself to just make it a bottom line and just say,
Totally.
here's my fee, and that's the way that we work. And I know it sounds challenging for anyone that's not doing percentage, but I promise you, the first time you do it and you get that client and you see that number and it finally begins to make you feel like, holy shit, I don't feel like I was completely taken advantage of and I
Totally.
feel resentful. I think that part will then heal you to maybe do it again and again and again.
1,000%. You totally nailed it because you do feel resentful,
Oh,
especially when they're making all these changes and you're having to replan the wedding or whatever. Well, now you're going to make money off of all those things. So, the time is worth it. You're not just, throwing it in.
and that way you don't have to limit yourself to also saying, oh, well, we only do this much. And then you put yourself in a box where now you're creating a little bit more urgency for yourself, for your team, and these boundaries that, again, boundaries are great. I'm learning all about it in therapy. Um, so
Easier said than done.
yeah. But I do think that we then can kind of be a little bit more open to working with new people, creating new experiences and learning ourselves, which I think that too, I would like to add is you're allowed to learn. You're allowed to learn. You should never stop learning. So I never want to say that like we've learned it all and we can do everything. We can do everything, but know that we're gonna learn things on the way. And I think that's okay
Yeah.
too, you know?
Yeah, I think the word boundaries is such a catchphrase right now. It's kind of like the drinking game of 2023, where pivot was 2020 or whatever.
Yeah, but then it's like
Um,
Jonah Hill, so that's not a good thing.
but the thing is, like, all of us are in the wedding industry for the most part to help others to make beautiful things. And we all have bleeding hearts, and boundaries they're hard, but you have to set them and you have to set them early. And the only reason I can say that is because I didn't have boundaries for a really long time. And sometimes I still don't, sometimes I do, but I always compare it to other industries. Like, do you think a lawyer is not going to charge you for the 8-minute phone call that you made to them in need, or your accountant? Do you think they're just going to throw in 5 hours of work because they feel bad? Like, no, in no other industry are people not charging what they deserve or their worth or anything like that. And also, you're probably not going to call your accountant or text them at 10 o'clock at night. So why should you text your florist or your caterer or your wedding planner? So it's a long conversation.
I would say, and it still happens, and some of us still do it. And I think that's where, again, like the community and these kind of things where we can find other people that are like-minded, that are in our industry, that are going to be able to soundboard with us and be able to give us that opportunity. And again, like I've been so lucky to work with the couples that I've worked with because there's always something exciting and new that we get to create. And I think that's always been a blessing for me too, to be a part of those experiences. But I do want to be very clear that every single time that I give a discount, then I now have to figure out a way to make that money that year. So then not only that now takes away my time, my energy, my magic from your wedding. And so that's what I also started articulating and communicating to my couples or inquiries that would come in and say like, hey, the reason I have to set this number is that in order for me to do 3 weddings a year, I have to set this number. Or now I'm going to have to do 6 weddings a year, which means that now I'm splitting my energy between 3 to 6 people, 6 couples. So you can understand how that then impacts the greater experience for you as well as the result. And so it's just kind of really figuring that stuff out. And again, I think as professionals, we are all in this industry. If you've been in it longer than 2 years, if you survived the pandemic, we are in it not just for the money. We're in it because we actually genuinely get great feelings out of creating good experiences based on love. And I think we should be able to protect that by saying, hey, this is a number that it requires for you to work with us. And that's okay too. You know, and there's a lot of couples that can do it themselves. Let them do that themselves. If they are so excited about doing it and saving it and getting that number, by all means, like, please go do it, because there's enough business and enough vendors that will work with the DIYers. It's completely fine, you know,
right?
And we shouldn't shame them either.
Yep. Amen. Okay, let's talk about expanding your business to add more income streams. So it's kind of a hot topic right now. So tell me about how you've done it.
Gosh, the public speaking has gotten the educator has really just exploded, I would say, in the last few years. I don't know. It's so hard. I changed my term to edutainer because I just feel like a doctorate, or I don't have traditional, in my mind, education foundations, but I do understand that I have a lot of life experience and a lot of experience in this industry. So I've been lucky enough to become a public speaker and do speaking for conferences and opportunities like this, but also I've had really great blessings to be able to do what I love, which is, you know, edutaining people and making people laugh by hosting wedding content. And now we have a streaming show on Love Stories TV, and I have a podcast. So I think network has been something that I think has been really beautiful and really the main core of my business. It's been referral-based business. We don't do marketing or traditional marketing. I just show my stupid self on social media. So usually the barrier of entry, if a couple doesn't think I'm stupid, they're usually pretty excited to work with me.
Oh my gosh.
But I think that ultimately, you know, you explore your network and make sure that every opportunity you do and every job you work, you want to keep some good people with you. And that's always been such a cool thing, is that from 3 jobs ago, I have people that still call me. My general manager from a restaurant 10 years ago had me just do their wedding last year, and it was so beautiful. And so it's like little things like that I think are big keys to how you can kind of maximize your income through your network. And also ask and like put out there what you want to do. I think that's another thing that has been a blessing for social media in general, is that like we unfortunately and fortunately can call yourself whatever you want now. You can add a title to your Instagram and call it a day. But I think you know, do good business too, because I think that once you do it well, you're going to get another referral or another person that's going to want to bring you business. But that's been really fun for me, is to be able to find other streams of income and find like creative ways of doing what I love, which is designing, creating partnerships, you know, and things like that. And then being able to, again, put a price tag to it. But a lot of times it came without a price tag first, where I was like, let me help you. Let me do it for free. Oh, and then finding out that, oh, people charge for this. So that's kind of been the fun part of the last few years, is really being like, okay, well, great. What's the investment for me? You know, and there's nothing wrong with you being able to ask that when somebody wants to pick your brain.
Right. The pick your brain. Margot, another well-known educator, she has a whole like pick your brain package where people can basically book her for lunch for an hour to ask questions, but she sends them an agreement. She charges them a fee. You know, if a planner went out with every single person that's asking them to meet for coffee and ask some questions, like, you'd never have enough time to do your job. So as much as, you know, many of us want to help and mentor and, you know, assist this new crop that's coming in, you also have to kind of prioritize your time as well. So
Absolutely.
okay, so what are some examples of income streams that some pros might not know about?
Partnerships. So a lot of times that, when I first started my business, I had this thing that would happen a lot where I would work in a venue and then the venue would try to poach me. And then at the time I'd be like, oh gosh, like I'm making $20 doing my business, but they're offering me a salary. And so unfortunately sometimes I would take the opportunity and then find out like a year into it that the integrity, or it wasn't just what I believed, how I wanted to run my life. And so I started doing retainers and consulting for different properties where I can do a retainer agreement and I can rep the property and provide, all the things that I had in my experience. Again, I came from venues, restaurants, and then I was able to add additional streams of income through commission incentives, but also a monthly retainer, because a commission incentive is not compensation. A commission incentive is you making money off of me already selling your property. But if you want me to sell your property, I need resources and funds for me to do that. So I had, I think, over 15 nightlife venues in my portfolio while still running my business I could. And again, there are sometimes opportunities to work with other vendors and partners that I think one thing that has been really interesting is this new generation is very much about making sure that you hustle and having multiple streams of income. But in our generation, when we started, it was like taboo to have more than one job. And if you were like doing anything else aside from your business, then you were no longer professional. That is not the case. You are more than happy and allowed and to do it. Just make sure that you don't overcommit yourself, because I've been there too. And then you start compromising the client experience, and then you have to, get fired, which is not fun. And so I think exploring kind of what you're great at and figuring out if you can make money doing it by helping other people, I think is always a great way to look at it. But also figuring out what your goal is. Like, do you want to have an agency, or do you want to just be an independent planner? Do you want to maybe just get into design and start white labeling design for other planners? I have an amazing friend who was a big planner, and then she realized that she loved doing design, and there was a lot of needs of other planners that were just traditional planners and wanted design support. And that's another great opportunity for revenue. But I think partnerships and collaboration is something that is a big way of, again, finding other streams of income. But again, like, be also genuine and authentic to who you are, and make sure that you're not the person that everyone's like, oh, this person's now doing, they're making candles. Oh, they're making candles. So I think just be a little bit clear about what it is that you want. But if it all fits within your bubble, there's nothing wrong with that too. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. So to add on to that, I think affiliate programs are a great way to bring in another income stream. If you are constantly telling your clients about a certain product that they need for their wedding day or whatever, you can make a commission off of that. There are all kinds of different sites that allow you to get paid for different links that you share. But I agree in that it has to be authentic, and you're sharing something that you actually believe in and you can speak to. Rock Paper Coin has an awesome affiliate program where our members that want to share about our platform with their different frienders, they get a code, they can share. The new member gets a code to get a discount when they sign up. So it's kind of a win-win. And if they're already sharing about a platform or a product that they love, it's a great way to just get paid for it by doing what you're already doing as well.
I do want to also say that, there's been all this conversation about favor economy and how, favors are something that is also not frowned upon anymore. So I don't want to say, again, like, the sponsorship thing has kind of gotten a little out of hand with like sponsored and styled shoots, and making sure that, like, every new season you have like a new styled shoot. I do think that, again, you want to compensate people, and we want to try to do that. So like, it's not always about getting something for free, but I do have to say that a lot of these partnerships and opportunities that may not offer a monetary compensation, but offer something else that's going to be valuable for you as a business, if it be a membership to their services, if it be some sort of incentive like an affiliate marketing thing. But I think those are also things that we should always explore as a business. You should always explore how you can save more on your bottom line.
Totally. Okay, I'm going off topic, but you kind of touched on this about firing clients. Have you ever had to fire a client?
Yes, yes, yes. And the first time I have to say was extremely hard because I felt this insane responsibility and not wanting to abandon them, even though they were so abusive. And so the moment I did it, the first time I did it, it actually was really, it was painful all the way through. It was painful all the way through, even though we had the contracts to protect us, and they ended up, you know, not being able to do anything. Cause again, it was really about the way that they were treating me. The second time it got a little bit easier, and the third time it got a little bit easier. And now I think we've only done it 4 times. But now we also can highlight and identify very soon and be like, hey, you know what? This is not working. Here's your deposit. Have a blessed day.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know, I think to be able to put yourself in an extremely stressful situation for 365 days is not worth it. It's not worth it. And if you want to think about a year's salary should be in the 6-figure. And if they're not paying you 6 figures, please go abuse somebody else. It's not my fault. Your photo booth can't be $300. It's not my fault. There's nothing I can do, you know?
It's hard. It's hard firing people, but God, you feel amazing afterwards if they've been treating you so terribly, right?
But also there's those couples that will also then all of a sudden be like, no, that's not what we meant. Like we good. It's like, yeah, but no, like you, in this case, again, boundaries. But I think,
right.
you know, I hate to do it, and I wish that we didn't have to, but now we have a clause for it. And
yeah,
if someone gets abusive, we are good. We're out the door.
That I was just going to ask you if you have an harassment clause in your contract.
We have a harassment clause. Thank you to
Isn't that wild that we have to do that now?
Yeah, it's wild, but I mean, it makes sense. It's
1000%.
Yeah, we're in an emotional time. And I do just empathize really quickly about what the process is like for the couple. I do understand that it is a completely new world for them. They have no idea, but that does not mean that I'm going to carry you with me. And that's just where I'm at in my life.
Yeah, there were too many times where I felt like I was being walked all over, and people were rude and mean, and I stuck with it because I didn't want to give the deposit back. I always get stuck on principle. I'm like, I worked so hard, I don't want to give it back. And every time I wish I would have.
Nothing feels worse than working a wedding day where you know the couple hate you. There's nothing that feels worse than you having to check in on your bride, being like, hey, how's it going? And you know they hate you. They hate her. The mom hates you. Everyone hates you. Everyone. There's nothing worse. I've only done that one time where we actually finished throughout the wedding, and it felt so terrible. I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again.
I have one that I can think of. It was horrible. And it was like a 5-hour drive away from where I live. And the whole drive home, I was like so mad. One of my kids had like a sports game that I'd missed, and they were horrible. I was like, it's the first wedding where I was like, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry at this reception. I need to keep it together.
Yeah.
And I was like, nothing was worth it. Not even the whole fee was worth it at this point. I should have quit when they first started being jerks.
But I think we use that, and we remember that, and that's how we build the ammo. And I think that's how you build your armor. So I think, again, like, I'm not one to ever regret a mistake. I think I had to experience it and go fully through it and know what it feels like to tiptoe around a wedding day when you know that everyone hates you. I think I feel that to know I never want to be put myself in that position again. You know?
Agreed. Okay, so let's talk about money. Tell me the good, the bad, the ugly about making money as a business owner.
Okay, so that's a constant roller coaster for me. I genuinely have the hardest time saying this is what I'm worth, but I've now trained myself to be able to do it. But I still get in the habit, and I'll be honest, I'm not coming as an expert, y'all. I'm just sharing you all my experiences so you don't make any of the same mistakes. I just recently white labeled for another production company, a very big production company, and unfortunately did not do a contract because it was a referral through someone I worked with before. Thought it was going to be fine. They paid the deposit. Fantastic. And the funny thing with reimbursements and the way that that life cycle works, where if you're on site and they need something and you're like, okay, great, let me just add it on and I'll send you a bill later. And 9 times out of 10, it's fine. The 10th, this is the part that's not fine, where this woman is now, she owes me like 20 something thousand dollars. And so we're taking it to legal. We have, you know, in the state of California, I think the verbal contract is still binding. But, you know, there's some discrepancies in her mind of what she felt the labor should be charged on some of the fees that we charge that unfortunately are just transactionally black and white. Like, this is what furniture movers cost. This is what the amount of time that they were there. So I think ultimately having systems in place and using contract tools, even if it feels like it's going to make you lose a job because it's just like you're like in this like booking energy or like in this relationship, it's never worth it. It's never worth it. Always, 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 always.
Oh, I'm sorry. That sounds
so now
so stressful.
Now I've decided that even if we have contract language to protect us on it, if you need me to add something and we're on site, you can send me an email as I'm looking at you, telling you, hey, will you send this email? Just so that I have it in writing again.
Yeah.
That you need to add this and you approve this number. And then we say, okay, even in the thick of this event that we're on site, you know, and I think that maybe I thought that there was a little bit more camaraderie because she was a part of the community. Turns out that's not the truth. Turns out,
brutal.
You know,
brutal.
So that's the situation.
So always have a contract, regardless of how big or small the job is. And get it signed virtually. So you have a timestamp, you have an IP address associated with it. And that way, if something were to go to court for whatever reason, you are totally covered.
Yep.
And that's where rock, paper, coin comes in.
Yep. Maybe try not. And I think that's another thing too, that, you know, these reimbursement things can sometimes get pretty outrageous. And there's always this like timing phase for us where we feel uncomfortable sending a bill to our couple the weekend of their wedding, or we feel uncomfortable saying, hey, oh my God, you look so beautiful, but do you mind just quickly? So I found that there's ultimately just get it done. Just
do it.
Transparent. Just say like, hey, don't want this to affect your energy for the day. So I want to make sure that we get this closed out before we step into the weekend. You know, and again, there was a time in the past where we had that same situation where our final balances are due usually 30 days before, but they like dragged it out, waited till the weekend of, and then said that they'd have it on that rehearsal night. Didn't bring it the rehearsal night. Then they said they would have it on the wedding night. And then of course, sure enough, a week and a half later, they tried to underpay us. And then we just reminded them of the contract. We're like, here's the contract. Got us right away. So but, you know, it's always like this extra consideration that ends up getting us screwed in the end. So
yeah. I actually tell planners, if you haven't been paid before, you tell your client that you're not showing up unless you've been paid. Because if they keep pushing it out, there's a reason they're doing that, and not just they're too busy. But if you're making it easy for them to pay, you're on rock, paper, coin, you send them an invoice, they literally click a link and pay. It should take them 10 seconds. So there's no excuse. And then sure, it might feel a little pushy at the time, but it's not as pushy as you after the wedding trying to nail them down to get their payment in. And then you've lost all leverage because, you know, the deed is done. You've done all your work. You've been on site. Everything was perfect and amazing. Whereas before, if you're like, I actually can't show up or be on site unless my fee is paid, or however you want to say it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know we have some Q&A. I have one last question for you. How do you see the industry changing for up and coming business owners?
I think that people are talking so much deeper. I think people are wanting so many deeper relationships. I think that community is really what people are looking for right now. And I think that's what's going to set your business apart. You know, I don't want to get into politics, but I do want to say that if you are a business that believes in equality, you will thrive. And if you don't believe in equality, then just be transparent about it. Because if you aren't transparent about it, I promise you, they're already talking about it. And I think that's another fun thing about this industry is that people talk, people investigate, people have friends of friends. It's a very small community. Try to do good business, just do good business. But I think community has been really, really interesting because, again, I'm finding that I'm now working with a little bit of less of the community, but I'm loving the community that I'm aligning myself with. And I think people are beginning to get a little bit smarter about who they want to align themselves with. And so are our couples. Our couples are also doing the same thing where they're asking more
Yep.
questions about what type of business they run, about who they are as business owners. They're looking for that information. So I think that's been really refreshing and exciting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you definitely walk the walk and talk the talk. And that's something that I respect about you, and yell the yell. You stand up for what you believe. You speak up. And I think that's just a really great quality, and not only a wedding professional, but a human being. So cheers to you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a ton of questions. Are you ready?
Oh my God. Okay, yes.
Okay. How do I put what I do in writing so that it truly shows my worth?
I think we're actually working on a rebrand right now, so my website doesn't give me the best. It doesn't make me sound like I can give the best answer for that. I think work with professionals that can help you create your bio. I think there's so many great writers out there. If writing is a challenge for you, I think figuring out how you want to share your message. So we're working on like a brand video. I love to storytell, and I think that's a great way for us. Some people use images, some people use, but again, there is no fit model anymore. We've seen some really fun websites and really fun ways that people represent themselves. So if writing is not that method, then find out what that is, if it is a brand video and things like that. But I think there's so many great talented people that are copywriters that can help you kind of find your voice. And I think it's just trying it and putting it out there and seeing what works. And if it doesn't, then there's nothing wrong with being able to do an edit and a repost,
Of course. Yeah, I love that. After an event, my clients are always so grateful and completely understand that their event could not have gone well without me. At that point, my worth is so clear to them, it's too late. How do I explain value worth before it's too late? I mean, how many times have you talked to someone and tell them what you do, and they're like, oh, I wish I had a wedding planner?
Yeah. I always encourage couples to interview more than one planner. So I usually say 2 to 3. I also always try to talk to them about what their friends have said, because a lot of times their friends are the ones that give them the information. And it's been interesting because, again, like I'm hearing a lot less people say, I want to do it myself. I hear a lot more people say like, oh, I know I need help. I know I want the help. But I do think that with all of these like tech companies and companies that come out as resources, I think find out which companies actually have owners that did what they're selling. I think that is one really big key thing. But in terms of like sharing your value, I think you really highlight what it is that sets you apart and what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think for us on our discovery calls that we have with our couples, we really truly care what the experience is like for our couples, and we want to be with them throughout the process, and we want to defend them throughout the process, and we want to advocate for them with their, when it comes to their family dynamics, and being able to say like, okay, that's what your mom wants, but what do you want, and how can we then get there? I think that's how we share our value. And then 9 times out of 10 times, you can find a good vendor, but working with partners that will show up for you the way that you show up for them, that's your value right there. Being able to call a florist during the most terrible time of florals and being able to say like, hey, can you help me out here? And then they're like, you know what? You've helped me out so many times. I can help you. That's your value right there.
Yep. I agree. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
How do you increase your prices while also looking for higher budget couples?
I think branding and marketing is important. I think obviously these luxury conferences are a great place to start rubbing shoulders with those people. I do think that, again, people are very savvy now. People understand that if it's a styled shoot, it's a styled shoot. I think just being honest, and like, we will never say that we worked in a country that we haven't worked in. We will say, hey, we worked in other countries. We worked in this kind of timeline. But I think the more you kind of like experience that stuff, you will be able to get there. So whatever that means for you, if that means that you have to like, work with another partner and collaborate on something and create your own thing to make sure that you have something that is in your network that is putting out what you want to do, I think that's a great way to do it. I know that not everybody has the resources to do that, but I think, you know, dreaming big and really being able to say like, hey, what is it that I want to do this year? And putting it out there, you know, you'd be surprised at how many people actually want to help you with your network and your friends. It's just about asking, which we're the worst at asking. We are terrible at asking.
So true. So true. And we've all heard the phrase, it's all about who you know. And that's definitely true in the wedding world, but also for higher end bookings, the easiest way to get there is to network with pros that are serving that clientele that you're after and making connections, and like going to Engage or Emergence or being a part of E3, where all of these pros, they work with those higher end budgets. You can create a relationship with them. If you ever have the opportunity to work with them, make sure you knock their socks off and do an amazing job. You stay top of mind. So you check in, you say hi every once in a while. Maybe you send a little something just to stay top of mind. So the next time they get an inquiry and they need a baker or a photographer or a caterer or a planner, you're the first person that they think of. And that's when the referrals start flowing. And once you get a couple under your belt, more just come. So it's really just kind of breaking in the first couple times. But I also think a piece of that is you have to be prepared to work with those higher budgets and have the experience, you know, in your belt before you start taking these, you know, several $100,000 weddings, because it is a different type of vendor that you're working with. There are more different types of vendors that you're working with. So as a newbie, I would just recommend getting as much experience as you can while still trying to network and get there. But it's hard to go from like newbie to high-end, super high-end weddings.
Yeah. And again, that's where you want to be transparent too. If you are a newbie, there's nothing wrong with being a newbie, but just understand that, like, you know, you're also kind of working up against a lot of other people that have been doing it for longer. It doesn't mean that you won't get that opportunity, because there are so many newbies that have gotten an amazing client. And I think that's too where you can kind of think about volunteering at nonprofits and figuring out where are these people hanging out and what are they doing, you know. And I think that's a big part too, is like, if you want to get into bigger budgets, and maybe you start looking at where those communities are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be an active service, you know, be an active service. Like, I think that's another big thing too, is we don't want to all work for free. I get that, but also there's something called, you know, paying your dues. And I think also learning and you know, there's so many different ways that you can go about it.
Yep. Agreed. Okay. Another question. People always want discounts, and it is important to know the value of what one has, but present it in a way that is not offensive. So how do you do that so people don't take offense by you saying no?
At this point, it's
No.
very clear. It's not even just a no. It's basically like kind of what I said earlier. If I give you a discount, just understand that now I have to figure out how I need to make that discount money throughout the year that I'm working, which means that I most likely will have to change our process. So I started psyching myself out with this thing where I said, okay, great. If you'd like a discount, the only prerequisite to our discount is that we get to work on your wedding when we get to work on your wedding. And if you want the discount, fantastic. But here's the clause that says that we can respond at any time we want to respond, when we want to respond, how we want to respond. Now, granted, I don't know if I would actually do that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That scares me enough. That scares them enough to not happen.
Well, and also a question is, like, are you expecting a lower service with this discount, or like, why a discount?
I think the bargain method is something that everyone, again, like everyone wants to bargain, and to bargain, that's great. But again, you're bargaining my time and you're bargaining my magic. So now I have to figure out how I have to make the extra $5,000 that you wanted discounted. Okay, well, just I have to take more time to do something else. And if you're okay with that, then great. Then here you go. And again, I want to be very clear. If discounts are what you want to offer because you're new or you're doing XYZ, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, like, I built my business on experiences, working for free, doing sponsorships, all the things. I'm not saying that that is the way that you can build a sustainable business, but it is a great way for you to learn. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. People talk about both niching down and growing income streams. Should you specialize before deciding to expand?
I think you should explore and figure out what you want to do and what you're great at, and then niche down, I think, from there. And again, I think the market is the market. So there is a robust market of people that are still doing day of coordination, even though that's technically not a term that we want to use. But like I said, let's not knock people for doing it. If you want to charge $800 to plan somebody's wedding, by all means, go do it, because then that'll also save any of us from getting that inquiry. But I think exploring and learning, you have to learn in order to figure out what you want to do. And if you want to niche down, I think you need to explore everything first before you niche down.
Yeah. And I think before you're adding on or doing different things, you really have to make sure your base company is solid and streamlined and running smoothly. Otherwise, that has the chance to fall apart while you're focusing on other things. How do you decide what to charge per hour for add-on services?
I don't do a la carte services. We are just it's very clear. We are a full service concierge level planner designer. That's what we do. And if you're looking for like an hourly charge or like a partial moment, we have an amazing group of friends that we can connect you to,
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting one. You said the more money clients spend, the more work we end up doing. I noticed that sometimes the clients with most consuming needs are the ones trying to spend the least and cut corners where they can. So what happens in the moments where your clients are trying to save more money and that becomes more hours of work and then the percentage ends up lower?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where that barometer of minimum helps you, is that you have this minimum that you can't go down. And that is what you've signed and committed to in this project, hoping that at least you'll get that minimum. I don't know the full answer yet of working with shitty people who take advantage of time. I luckily work with less and less of them every year. But there is a point in time where I think there are people that will do that, but I realize that those people are not very smart either, because you're the person that they have to come to throughout this entire process. Mm-hmm. So for them to be able to do that. But I think also you can communicate that. I think at some point you can say, hey guys, like this is now the 15th revision that we've done, and you're still asking me for something less. And I'm telling you that the market doesn't exist for that. At this point, we can either let it go and move on, or, if we have to have a deeper conversation about what this is going to look like, but financially it just doesn't make sense. And I think that's just something that you have to kind of communicate, but I think ultimately people are going to be who they are. So if you find out 6 months in that they're shitty people, I think that's where that harassment clause comes in.
Yeah.
And have like the contracts in place to protect yourself. And I know that there are other people that have like tiers where by a certain point you do XYZ, then you have XYZ. Like if that is what brings you protection and joy, then do those things. I think for us, it's always just been about like, if that's what happens throughout the planning cycle, we will just never work with that couple again. We'll never work with that client again. And we've made the mistake to do it once, we'll never do it again.
Yeah. Okay. I know we're almost out of time. Somebody asked, where do you learn how to correctly write the percentage model in your contract? Legally Set has a great template for this. If you just go to legallyset.com, plug in the code RPC and you'll get 20% off. They have like whole bundles. It's a really, really well written percentage agreement. I would recommend, if you do use a template, to have a local attorney review it, just because different states have different laws. So you want to make sure you're covered.
Cooney, okay. Weinberg also have an amazing legal.
That's them.
Yeah. So they have that. Also, I would say find a great community person that is in the legal side too, to also help you on customize things, finding different partnerships where maybe you can have a lawyer help you throughout the year. Those are all really great ways to protect yourself, because you will need them in a business.
Okay, last question. Give me your best horror story.
I think
wedding related.
Oh, wedding related?
I should clarify.
Oh my God, there's so many. Oh my God. Okay. So the one and only time that I've ever let a groom not share a vendor contract, because he had brokered it himself. He guaranteed that it was like it was a wedding for about 200 people. He got catering for 70, like tray pass.
God.
And I have never been yelled at and threatened by little Asian ladies more aggressively than this experience. This was 10 plus, this like 10 years ago, maybe. I have never not audited a contract for a client ever since. So every single contract that comes in, every vendor that's coming in, I'm sorry, I'm a part of it. I'm very deep into the contract. So that's my
brutal.
Never have ever been yelled at more than that night with people.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was
I'm
terrible.
sorry. That sucks. Terrible. God, I want to hear the other ones too, but we'll save that for another day. Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your experiences. You always make me smile. So for everyone that's watching, follow Jason at Jason Roars on Instagram, and then follow us at Rock Paper Coin. And we have another Money Talks webinar coming up in a couple weeks with Terica. So stay tuned for more details there.
Really a good one.
I know, right?
For that.
Okay, so I have to tell you a quick story. The last webinar I did, my son was like right by there. And I was like finishing it up like this. And he goes, Mom, you sound like the guy at church talking about the spaghetti dinner. So anyway, there's my spaghetti dinner. Thank you everyone for joining us. Jason, we'll see you soon.
For the next one, because Terica will really tell you what you have to do.
Bye.